The Ashtanga Hridaya establishes a precise architectural rule for human metabolism in its opening chapter. The text defines 4 specific states of the digestive fire, known as Agni. The text provides a direct one-to-one mapping between the foundational biological forces, the doshas, and these metabolic states. Vata creates a vishama, irregular digestion. Pitta causes a tikshana, sharp digestion. Kapha produces a manda, sluggish digestion. The 4th state is Sama Agni. This is the predictable digestive fire produced by an exact equilibrium between all 3 doshas. This creates an immediate biological paradox. The classical texts state that all 3 doshas must continuously interact to generate and sustain a living human body. If Vata, Pitta, and Kapha are all present inside a patient at every single moment, a clinical question emerges. How can a physician accurately attribute a specific metabolic state to just one of them? The resolution to this paradox is found in the classical commentaries, specifically the Sarvangasandari and the Ayurveda Rasayanam, which analyze the root text. These texts reveal that the original shloka is a dynamic, quantifiable system governed by catalytic amplification and the behavior of opposing, non-canceling forces. Managing metabolic disorders in a clinical setting depends on the rigorous, deductive logic known as yukti, utilized by these ancient commentators. The commentators address the physiological overlap of the doshas by introducing the principle of utkarsha, which refers to absolute clinical predominance. This represents a baseline metabolic state. When the texts assign an Agni to a single dosha, they refer to the specific force that completely subjugates the others. This dynamic shift is driven by vritti, or active aggravation. The dominant dosha aggressively overtakes the internal environment. To prove exactly how these imbalances manifest, Himadri introduces an epistemological tool called the Pariseshya Nyaya, or the rule of remainder. The logic follows strict deduction. If perfectly balanced doshas equal a balanced Agni, then by the rule of remainder, the 3 pathological digestive states result from imbalanced doshas. The clinical rule states that a depleted dosha, or kshaya, lacks the systemic power required to independently dominate human metabolism. Altered digestive fire indicates the presence of an actively overpowering biological force rather than the relative weakness of competing systems. Having defined the internal state of the doshas, the clinical focus shifts to measurable, observable parameters for digestion. The Ashtanga Sangraha provides an exact metric for this using the yamas. 1 yama is a unit of measurement equal to 3 hours. This timeline illustrates the mathematical standard for Sama Agni. Processing a normal meal takes exactly 12 hours, or 4 yamas. A medical compound follows a secondary standard. That process takes exactly 2 yamas, or 6 hours, to complete. Digestion completing significantly faster than this standard mandates a diagnosis of Tikshna Agni. Conversely, if the process takes excessively longer than 12 hours, the physician makes a diagnosis of Manda Agni. The 12-hour timeline of Sama Agni provides a precise, universal diagnostic anchor that supersedes subjective reports of wellness. Metabolism becomes more complex during samsarga, a state where 2 distinct doshas are aggravated simultaneously. To map these dual imbalances, we look at Vata's defining functional property, Yogavahi, or catalytic amplification. Vata adopts and amplifies the properties of the dosha it associates with. In a Vata-Pitta collision, the wind vector acts exactly like a bellows fanning a flame, resulting in an intensely sharp Tikshna Agni. In a Vata-Kapha collision, that exact same wind vector amplifies heavy, suppressive cold. The result is a profoundly blocked, sluggish Manda Agni. The mechanism works because Vata provides inherent mobility. It removes the natural physical limits of the stationary dosha, driving the pathology to exponential extremes. In complex metabolic disorders, Vata acts as a systemic multiplier. The physician treats the amplified target rather than simply addressing the Vata itself. This brings us to the simultaneous aggravation of the hot Pitta and the cold Kapha. While absolute physical opposites might seem to cancel each other out, the physiological reality is different. Himadri refutes the idea of neutralization using Nadarsana Tantra Yukti. This methodological tool uses a visible disease to explain the mechanics of the internal digestive fire. In a mixed Pitta-Kapha fever, the patient experiences alternating extremes of burning heat and freezing chills. This weave form maps pariyana, or sequential expression. The contradictory doshas take turns dominating the system. This behavior is rooted in Sankhya philosophy. Mutually opposed universal forces naturally weave together to sustain continuous action without destroying one another. Because this internal environment is unstable, the state of the Agni is dictated by external triggers, specifically the immediate diet, or ahara vishesha. Consuming hot foods instantly flares the pitta, causing metabolism to spike. Consuming heavy, cold foods triggers kapha, plunging digestion into stagnation. While this alternating behavior appears to create a fifth type of Agni, Himadri defends the existing rule of 4 categories. Erratic, chaotic behavior is the definition of Vaishamna. This oscillating state is naturally categorized within the existing Vishama definition. Contradictory doshas battle for dominance. To stabilize this internal war, the physician must strictly control the external variables. This layout maps the ancient deductive logic directly to modern gastrointestinal disorders. The 4-yama rule remains an uncompromising baseline. It provides exact parameters for prescribing meal intervals and medicine dosing. If a patient's digestion consistently surpasses 12 hours, prescribing heavy, nourishing treatments will result in clinical failure due to profound Manda Agni. This framework also addresses paradoxical presentations, such as patients with alternating hyperacidity and gastric stagnation. The clinical objective is to establish a predictably functioning human digestive tract despite internal or external metabolic chaos. In erratic cases, the physician focuses on strict external dietary control to break the oscillating parayana cycle. The physician prioritizes identifying and neutralizing the single akarsha driving the pathology over attempts to pacify all 3 doshas simultaneously. Understanding Agni as a dynamic, mathematical reality of metabolic pathology allows for more precise clinical interventions than static classification lists.